Hello everyone and welcome to our third presentation in our virtual edition of Cyclone Narelle of Perth Beacon Expo 2026. Our next presentation, we have Jemma here from Free the Hounds. Jemma is a long-time animal advocate and committee member of Free the Hounds with years of experience campaigning to end greyhound racing. Her advocacy bridges community education, media and policy reform to end greyhound racing. This presentation traces the Free the Hounds journey from grassroots action to a WA parliamentary inquiry into greyhound racing and asks the most important question: what happens next? Together, we explore how this moment can fuel lasting change and build unstoppable momentum for animal liberation beyond one industry. So I will pass over to you now, Jem.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kimmy, and to Emma and all of the Perth Vegan Expo team. I can't believe how wonderful it is that you've been able to still put this together, scrambling away. It's amazing. So yeah, my name is Jemma Fittock. It says on my bio there long-term advocate, but I recently realised that I'm actually haven't been in the game for very long at all compared to how long some people have been just looking at the greyhound racing industry and asking questions. So just about me, I am a registered nurse. So my advocacy before I found Free the Hounds and animals in general was for my patients, of course. And just like most advocates, especially in greyhound adoption, I got myself 2 greyhounds. I rescued Bunny in 2019 and then Bo in 2021. And it was at that point that I started asking the questions of why is dog racing even a thing still? So when it comes to the history of Free the Hounds, that's pretty much how it started. So I'll just go to the slide. So in 2015, Free the Hounds was founded. And basically it started as a Facebook group, then it went to getting a marquee and a table and going to different marketplaces and just meeting either people with companion pets of any sort or greyhound adopters. And they just started asking these questions that have pretty much been kept in the dark by the racing industry. So they saw things like the catastrophic injuries and the deaths on track, but they also were rescuing greyhounds that had these serious injuries that they then had to take care of them for the rest of their lives. And these were young, healthy dogs that were breaking legs, and when they started really looking into the industry itself, finding that the kennel situations, the fact that these dogs were not socialized with either breeds or people, and then realizing that, oh, wait a minute, it's actually the WA government that controls and runs and subsidizes this industry. And on top of that, the actual Department of Racing and Wagering WA actually regulates itself. So it makes the rules, it enforces the rules, and it also gives out penalties. And that's all very insular. So if someone is found breaching any rules and they're a participant of the industry, it's all done in-house. So this industry that's main mission is to maximize gambling revenue is also in charge of the welfare, the regulations, and the enforcement of all of it, as well as managing the TAB, which is owned also by the state government, the betting agency. So huge conflict of interest, and these dogs were coming out and being rescued, and people were falling in love with them and asking the questions. So from that start in 2015, the first petition was in 2021, and over 11,000 signatures, keeping in mind that at that time that was all pen and paper signatures. So a huge amount of work by the volunteers back then. And I was not there yet. I actually came and started advocating for greyhounds in 2022 when the second petition came along, and we managed over 18,000 signatures on that petition. And in that year, that's when we were able to go online and have a QR code and send it out via social media. So we really had quite a boost in numbers there. Now that petition went to Parliament, and the standing committee looking at that petition said, nope, we're not doing anything. And that was the end of it. But not the end of it for us at Free the Hounds, because even though we didn't start out with this grand political plan and strategy, we were very quickly learning how things work in Parliament and how legislative change is where we had to completely laser focus on, as well as promoting these this breed as a fantastic companion animal. And one of the little things that Free the Hounds did before I arrived is a campaign called Free the Snoot, and that was to remove the legislation that required all greyhounds in public to wear muzzles. So that was back in 2021, I believe, that first was moving through Parliament, and by 2023, the beginning of the year, the legislation was changed, and we now can see greyhounds as every other companion dog without a muzzle, unless they need one, of course, which should apply to all breeds. So then in 2023, because we had no luck with that second petition, Free the Hounds very cleverly decided to write a letter to the Estimates Committee, which is a parliamentary committee, to obtain more information on how the money flows. And that landed, and there were I think that's what I put in there. Yeah, 2023 request for inquiry. So that was the letter that we mailed to the Estimates Committee. Also in this year is when we released our podcast, Talking Couch Potatoes, and that now has over 60 episodes since 2023. And it's a really great way to really follow the journey of Free the Hounds. It's hosted by Mel, who is our president of Free the Hounds, and by Matt, who is, he actually came from a background where he went to the dogs with his dad and learned all, and enjoyed it as a family friendly outing, and has completely turned because of his greyhounds. We also looked at school excursions when a wonderful author, Emily, who has Lily Longnose, she wrote a book called Lily Longnose. I've completely forgotten the book. Home to Stay, something like that. Sorry about that, Emily. But this wonderful children's book was sort of the catalyst in getting school excursions where Georgia the Grey and Lily Longnose went with their parents along and read their children's book to all the kids at school. So that reached kids in primary and high school, and just taught them about where these rescued greyhounds are coming from. Then in 2024, we had public hearings from the Estimates Committee that we had written that letter to. So that those hearings and the report that came out of that was really did expose how the rising deaths and major welfare concerns were so apparent, and then they recommended a public inquiry, and that was right at the end of the year. That was at the beginning of the year. The recommendation happened, and during that year we did our third petition, which managed almost 27,000 signatures. So that was again online and from the hard work of all the volunteers collecting those signatures. Then in 2025, we tabled that petition at the beginning of the 2025 parliamentary year, and a couple of months later we got recommendations from that standing committee for a formal inquiry. So that began in the end of 2025. We found that they opened submissions out to the public, and we went pretty hardcore on our submission outreach. So online we collaborated, we did workshops, we did street outreach with Liberation Cooperative. Emma and I were out there with our greyhounds and managed to reach hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people with that campaign. And that actually, the standing committee actually received 5,251 submissions for that inquiry, for this inquiry that's currently going on at the moment. We then had so while that's all happening, Free the Hounds, very, very clever people in the committee, we also looked at doing a public survey, which had happened before in Tasmania, and it really gave us some insight into what people across the board think of greyhound racing. I have it here somewhere. No, I don't. So that was fantastic because it was done by Demos AU, who are a professional pollster. They were able to interview almost 3,000 people across Western Australia only, and they made sure that they interviewed voters that were across all the different political parties, as well as all the regions in Western Australia. And then they compiled those responses, and we came up with an overwhelming 60% of people that were interviewed and surveyed. They would like to see a phase out of greyhound racing. And that majority was actually, interestingly, across all the parties that were interviewed, and it was across the regions as well. So right across Western Australia, whether you're living in a regional area or an urban area, greyhound racing is just, it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And we kind of know this from our street outreach as well. The amount of people that we speak to that, number one, don't realize it's even still happening. But number two, don't believe dog racing is something that we should be participating in, especially as a government-controlled entity. So now in 2026, we have the public hearings on Monday, which is crazy. We've been preparing for that. So Free the Hounds is appearing at 9:30 a.m. on Monday. And we have 2 hours to answer any questions that the committee have, and also highlight any updates that have happened since our submission was received last November. And then it comes to the next the next steps, which is the public call to action. So the campaign we're currently running, and would have had flyers at the Perth Vegan Expo. All our volunteers were ready to give out these flyers, or at least let people see the campaign. to reach out to anybody and everybody who is willing to spend a couple of minutes just writing to their MP to let them know that a timed phase out of greyhound racing is what's needed here. The reform and the the regulation changes that the industry is saying might have to happen, they're just not good enough. A phase out of dog racing is what's needed here in Western Australia. So just to let you know what an inquiry is, this is our first step. This is how we can push for legislative change. So that's just a slide that shows the basic what the key role is and how we can move towards legislative change. But I'll flick through that. So yeah, policy changes and new legislation, government or funding reforms, or greater public awareness and accountability. So the inquiry makes the recommendations that then go to sorry if you just heard a yawn then, that go to the Parliament. I'm going to go on the next slide. Lost my train of thought. So here's how it works. The terms of reference were announced by the inquiry. We've done that. The public submissions invited, done that, and received and read. And we're up to the public hearings, which occur on Monday and Tuesday. They are, you can watch them. They'll be live streamed on the WA Parliament website. And that Free the Hounds is from 9:30 to 11:30 on Monday morning. And then there's Racing and Wagering WA and the Western Australian Greyhound Racing Greyhound Trainers and Breeders Organisation are also going to be presenting on the Tuesday, I believe. And then once all those hearings are held, the final report will be tabled in Parliament and presented to Parliament. So that's what's going to happen next. This is an example of how an inquiry actually changed legislation in WA. So over 2021 and 2022, finally the Work Health and Safety Regulations 2022 were changed because of this inquiry into sexual harassment against women in the FIFO mining industry. So speaking to your MP, MPs really do listen to, I think we all know that MPs will listen to and holds more weight when there is a just a paragraph that describes who you are, why it matters to you, what you see as a problem, and how you think it can change. And if that's just a paragraph or two, then that holds a lot more weight than them receiving hundreds of templates that look similar. So to start with that, and just the reasons why it matters is because they are genuine and personal accounts. They're the sort of things that MPs will remember. Along with this, the things on this slide, I do want to point out that emailing your MP is great, and we would love for as many people to email as possible. But even better is a phone call, and the best thing is actually a visit. So everybody has the right to walk into their local member's office and ask for an appointment at the earliest convenient time. And we tell our Free the Hounds supporters that they can definitely take their dog along, unless someone's allergic to them or something. I've been in a couple of local members' offices and they're very welcoming with their dogs. So taking greyhounds along is a great thing as well. Or your pooch. So we would really like to encourage people to, when they are talking to their MPs, to support the time-limited phase-out of commercial greyhound racing in Western Australia. This is the number one thing, because there is no safe way of racing. We've seen other jurisdictions make changes and reform, and they have not helped at all. So the dogs are still getting injured, they're still dying, and a big problem is with the overbreeding. The way that greyhounds are now pushing out other potential rescue dogs, that that if the greyhound racing ceased, eventually there wouldn't be all these greyhounds that are also needing to be rehomed, along with all the other neglected, abused, dumped dogs that are in the shelters and are burdening the shelters at the moment. So number one, a phase out of commercial greyhound racing. A phase out is required because it is the only way to safely rehome all those dogs. So Free the Hounds has looked very closely at it, and it's a 3-year phase out minimum, according to how the rehoming will go. But meanwhile, during that 3 years, we need to look at the funding of those greyhounds that are discarded by the industry. A lot of those are, a lot of the costs are taken on by the rescue organisations and by the adopting families. We also want to have a look at the injury and outcome data, and it needs to be a lot more transparent than what it is, as well as creating independent oversight. This conflict of interest that these racing and wagering have, where they're promoting gambling revenue and maximising it, whilst also looking after the welfare of the dogs, is outrageous. Unbelievable that it happens in this industry, because it doesn't happen in very many government-controlled industries. There's some examples on this slide of what our latest prompts that you can use. So you can choose one or two. You can focus on anything that that you feel is relevant to you. But as you can see, 159 greyhounds died within the racing industry in the 24-25 season, which included 16 on the track. So the 16 on the track is what Racing and Wagering WA publish as their data. So that just goes to show the transparency is not there, because a whole lot more of them died after the fact, after their injuries, after they've even won the race. There was dogs that would win a race and then collapse, you know, a day later, or we'd find them deceased a week later. So the fact that these dogs are euthanized after they get home off the track, those figures are not published. So Free the Hounds has become experts in writing for freedom of information requests to finding out, where has this dog gone, where has this dog gone. So at the moment, we're being the independent overseers, except we're slightly biased. We also had 629 racing injuries in that same year. All of them, these dogs suffered. All the injuries, whether it's a broken toe or an abrasion, or it's a complete muscle tear and internal hemorrhage. There's also statistics that over 40% of all racing greyhounds are injured each year in Western Australia. And about 1 in 3 of these injuries are serious, and 1 in 8 are catastrophic. The housing and rehoming, this little list here does just show how the racing industry is allowing these conditions. So these are the racing rules. So they need to be taken out for 45 minutes per day. So so the other 23.25 hours of the day, they are allowed to be just kept in kennels, and that is, you know, we've seen dogs that have been kept in kennels for months and months and months and not raced. So this is their life. And then that last point on the housing and rehoming, this just speaks to how the burden of care and financial strain is placed on the rescuing organisations and on the adopting families. So that's just a figure of $250,000 in a year to rehome those 250 greyhounds. So that is not at all funded at all by the industry. So this is where we would like to see the industry, as we phase out, to put some of those costs into the rehoming costs. And this is a QR code that you can use to find out who your local MP is, and you can be their voice. So I think that is about all the time I have. I think I've got a few more minutes to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Gemma. We haven't had any questions come through that I can see, but obviously if anyone has any questions, they can still post in the comments, and I'm sure you will see them and we can get back to them.
Yeah.
What a valuable presentation. Thank you so much. I really loved that. Like, it just shows how the effort of going into, you know, doing all the inquiries, and then now you've got the hearing on Monday. Like, that's absolutely amazing. But, you know, that's such a big thing. And like you said, so many people don't realize it's still happening here, which is so concerning. But it just shows that public awareness, it still really needs to happen. And so that call to action for everyone watching and anyone that's concerned about animal rights or dogs in general should be writing to their MP, contacting the MP, asking for that appointment, and using those prompts that you have available to, do the call to action. So it was a really, really valuable presentation. Thank you so much.
Actually, one thing that I did forget to just mention, and what I wanted to do to reach out to the PVE community, is that this fight that we're fighting, we all have our little causes that we have, our, you know, our favorite causes and what we'll stand up for and be loudest for. But this one is just so politically powerful, and it's so it's embedded in our economic, like the gambling lobby, and the economic returns of gambling is so significant. And there is also a culture of people out there that is their culture. Dog racing is their culture. So we do have a really, it has always been a really big fight. But the fact that we've gotten this far, and I'm sort of paraphrasing the words of Carrie Thiel here, who is the Grey 2K USA Worldwide director. And he's seen it across the US, where they have, over the last 20 years, shut down all of the dog racing tracks in the US. So there's only 2 remaining, and they are set to be shut as well. So it is, even though it is politically and economically and culturally powerful, this is something that we're winning. And for animal liberation community and the animal welfare community across the board to watch this and be a part of this, this is a win that can really sort of shape our future as far as advocating and getting wins for every other cause out there that is wanting to help animals.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Gemma. Lots of comments of support coming through from the people watching. And just a reminder, everyone, you can find more about Free the Hounds on their Instagram and Facebook at Free the Hounds. They've also got a YouTube, Free the Hounds 9311, and then their website, freethehounds.com.au. And then I know Gemma also mentioned the podcast. we can
Yes.
find lots of information too. So thank you so much again, Jemma, and to all the Free the Hounds group, volunteers, absolutely everyone involved. And thank you for everyone watching as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You too. Bye.